Welcome back to Chips and Salsa. I'm Crow,
I'm Jerry.
and today we have another entry in our series talking to the internal open source experts here at Intel.
Yeah, so today we're talking with Pavan Gupta, who's one of our experts working on, Linux kernel mitigations. He works on a lot of stuff. It's interesting, Crow, in this series that we're doing, and a lot of the Chips and Salsa videos, even where we're talking to, these subject matter experts at Intel, we find that they're contributing a lot to the ecosystem in general, whether it be through open source projects or, working with the academic community, finding projects to fund, putting, on these academic awards. It's insane. Standards bodies. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. It's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you might not think about in your normal day, huh?
Yeah. And the thing of it is though, that in every case, almost, we don't see a lot of Intel competitors out there, contributing in that way. And this is extremely important, I think, given that, Linux kernel, data centers run on Linux pretty much.
And the world.
This is extremely important stuff, to build on the security of these products, to, advance the entire ecosystem and the state of security. So let's talk to Pavan about the work he does here at Intel and his contributions to open source.
Sounds great.
Pavan, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me here. My name is Pavan Gupta, and I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing awesome. So we're continuing our series here on how we do open source security at Intel, and you're a big part of that, obviously. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up doing the work that you do here at Intel?
Yeah, so I joined Intel in 2019 in this security and mitigations team, where we primarily focus on mitigations in Linux kernel. So there I got involved in POC writing and developing mitigations and some of the internal experiments that we do before we finalize on a mitigation. Do some benchmarkings and check the effectiveness of the mitigation. And there are lots of other teams also involved. So we interact with, we collaborate with other teams at Intel on this.
That's really interesting. So, as a kernel engineer, could you tell us how you develop these proofs of concept and test out these mitigations?
Yeah, so we when we know about a vulnerability, we analyze how else it can be exploited, how can it be mitigated. So we develop our own POCs as well. We rely on external POCs. We create variants, and we do experiments on the developing the mitigations as well. So which mitigations would be costly, which will be effective, and then keep a balance between the performance and the security.
Nice. So can you tell us about your interest in Linux security modules, virtualization, and drivers?
Yeah, so I started my career as an embedded engineer, working closely on hardware. Initially, it was just microcontrollers, and then starting working on the SD card drivers, SDIO drivers, and that got me interested in Linux kernel. Most part of my career, I was working on embedded systems, initially on ARM, and then in the connected home division at Intel, I worked on the x86 architecture as well. So with the cloud coming in, virtualization is really big, and these mitigations security and the mitigations, they interact closely with the virtualization environments. So, uh, and also the Linux security modules, I believe they can help with mitigating and finding out attacks and early detection of the attacks, and also we can put some measures and checks over there, so these attacks can be foiled early, can be detected early, and can be foiled or things like that. So that has got me interested in uh, this Linux security modules and virtualizations, and of
You,
course, yeah.
you're involved. Crow and I work with you a lot through the course of security incident response, responding to reported vulnerabilities. You're heavily involved in updating the Linux kernel directly. Are you not? Or
In some cases, yes. So so I was involved in developing the mitigations for TAA, and some of the internal experiments we do for the vulnerabilities disclosed after,
Mhm.
and some of the current vulnerabilities as well.
So, thinking about your work on the kernel and with security modules, how does that benefit the open source community and kind of the overall ecosystem and our customers?
Um, we are not really using Linux security modules.
Mhm.
There were some efforts towards detecting these attacks using Linux security modules, but those were they were so many false positives. Then, but I think this area needs to be revived, and I'll see if I can contribute there. And overall, like contributing to the community, we try to uh, fix the problems uh, ourselves. We try not to burden community.
Mhm.
We try to share whatever responsibilities we can. We are a small team, but then we're growing, and we'll keep contributing more on that.
Mhm. Well, that's a big part of open source is kind of that collaboration and participation. It's one thing to find a problem, but then it's another thing to help actively contribute to solving it, right?
Mhm.
so, have you given any conference talks at all in the
I
past?
I haven't, but I do have plans to present some of these vulnerabilities and go in depth. Uh, that's in the pipeline.
Mhm. Do you have any projects or patches you're currently working on you want to mention?
Recently, I upstreamed patches related to TSX. Uh, those affect some of the vulnerabilities related to TAA and MDS as well. And while I was working on that, we found a problem in one of the mitigations. Like what we found was when the system goes to sleep, some of these MSRs were not restored properly, and those were used for mitigating Spectre,
Mhm.
and some were used for mitigating TAA. So those was not restored properly. So we worked with the security team at Linux Foundation and fixed that before it was known publicly. It was upstreamed recently and backported to stable kernels.
That's great. That constantly evaluating your work and then constantly improving it is, I think, a really great aspect of open source. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
At Intel, or even outside of Intel or before Intel, uh, what's the one thing that you've done, from a technical perspective, that you're most proud of?
Basically, developing the whole embedded system. Like I have worked in startups where they were just like two engineers. Um, yeah, and we developed the whole system ourselves. We From the every small bit like soldering and um, yeah, that was fun. And after that, when I got involved with Linux kernel, so I worked on the SDIO stack for a large corporation. So I was the sole developer of that feature. So yeah, that was, and I was instrumental in improving the performance a lot. So that's something I'm pretty proud of.
Awesome.
Performance gains are always big.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we really appreciate your time today, kind of sharing a little bit about your work and your history. It was really great talking with you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks
for
for
having
coming.
me here. It was fun.
Oh, what a great conversation with Pavan. I really learned a lot today.
Yeah, it's great to be able to work with Pavan on a daily basis almost. I mean, he's a very quiet guy, but he's very intelligent and he's contributing a lot out there. So thank you, Pavan, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you, Crow, for joining us from wherever you are, where you're so yellow.
I'm in beautiful Dallas, Texas at the Intel Vision conference.
The Vision Conference.
Talk with our customers and the ecosystem about some of the awesome stuff Intel's doing.
Awesome. Well, go represent us out there. And
Get my tan on.
yeah. To all of the viewers out there, thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time.